Hello, I'm Jennia D'Lima. Welcome to Writing and Editing, the author-focused podcast that takes a whole-person approach to everything related to both writing and editing. Techno-thrillers are filled with danger, extremely high stakes, and tons of action. And as the name implies, technology plays a huge part in moving the story forward. Today we have author Charles Breakfield here to share how you can also write a suspenseful and gripping story in this exciting genre. Well, first, thank you for being here.
Jenna, I appreciate it. Again, apologies for my co-author who was sideswiped by her pesky customers at work. And um, uh, I will freely admit that she's far more attractive than I am, but I do tell a good story.
Well, that's very helpful. So, before we get started into some of the meatier questions, what makes a story a techno thriller and not just a thriller?
The the technical realism is the way I would categorize it.
Mhm.
Um, when we first got started, kind of step back a little bit. Uh, we're in that we've been in the technology world for quite some time, so multiple years, multiple manufacturers, and we get to see stuff that nobody has ever had seen. Sometimes 6 months in advance,
Mhm.
and we get to help debug it.
Oh.
I'm I've had manufacturers send me stuff and say, here, try this out in your corporate in your environment. I am known as the dark angel when it comes to breaking technical stuff. I've had send things back. They said, "What did you do?" I said, this." They went, "We'd have never thought to do that or try it that way. Let's go fix that." Gee, that's you know, uh, well done. You outwitted our engineers. Okay, but we get to see a lot of the technology, the flaws, the things that
Mm.
could be used incorrectly. So, in our world, there's nothing that moves without technology pushing buttons someplace or intercepting something or defeating the good guys. So, um, rather than the what I've considered the an analog approach, just running around with a couple of pistols and having somebody. What if you use the technology to be able to enhance the um, real life feel for
Mhm.
things like identity theft? I mean, um, that was one of the first books we did. I mean, that's an easy jump. There's another one that using cryptocurrency to launder money, drug money. That's real stuff.
Yeah.
And then baking that into a story makes it a techno thriller.
Mhm.
It's not about the technology, but it's how the bad guys and the good guys square off, fight with each other, and just so you know, the bad guys are always ahead until the good guys figure out, here's the weakness.
How accurate does the depiction of technology need to be when you're including it in a story like one of yours?
Um, there has been more than one occasion where somebody says, "You're out of your mind, Charles. That can't possibly be true." I said, "What about?" I've seen it. I know I've helped fix stuff that has been inflicted on the companies I consulted with. They're like, "Wow, uh, yeah, it has to be real. It has to be legitimate. Can it be a little bit of a stretch? Yeah, okay. Nobody would have thought to do that to what you're postulating, but um, is it one of them that we did? One of the books that we did where we used, you know, DNA editing genome of the genome to be
Oh,
able
right.
to repurpose uh, the software that you're born with. Okay, here's the genetic readout that says, okay, this is Jenna, this is Charles, and here's all the stuff that goes into it. What if you could edit that and then basically recharge the programming in your chemical makeup, your biological makeup? Um, they've actually got technology already out there, the CRISPR, to be able to edit genome um, uh, uh, DNA sequencing to be able to pull out things that are undesirable, put in things that are desirable, and help grow for human beings in pigs. Now, that's pretty close to what we were doing. We just took the quantum leap that goes, let's do that on human beings in
Mm.
book 6.
Mhm.
So yeah, there's some things that we get a little over the edge on stuff, but the technology is there and it is already operational in some places, and some of it is cloaked, and some of it's being done without any ethics. And
Yeah,
that's where the thriller comes into place. It's like, okay, imagine fighting somebody who's, it doesn't, the rules don't apply to me, so I'm going to use it the way I want.
yes.
Wow.
Well, what about using speculative tech or maybe a more advanced version of the tech that currently exists?
Well, and we do that from time to time. Uh, a lot of the buzz today is about the artificial intelligence or AI.
Hmm.
Um, we were using, we actually, we have a character that is an AI enhanced supercomputer that we started with back in 2012 because we were working with very rudimentary AI programs.
Hmm.
But we could see pretty quickly that you could grow the awareness for the individual for that computer program to the point where it's now interacting with you just like a colleague.
Ah,
And so, that's that's one of the characters that we like. His name is Ichabod, and he's on the good guy side. And we do poke at ourselves a little bit, some fun, because we in the techno world, it's always the the acronyms that drive people nuts from the
yes.
outside. And so we built a silly one called the Immersive Collaborative Associative Binary Override of Deterministic Systems, and that's what Ichabod's name really stands for.
That is fun. I have wondered about that too because I've read some books in this genre where the amount of acronyms used or technical terms have thrown me out of the story just because it's hard to follow. So, what advice would you have for someone who's writing something like this on when they should include them and when they should maybe hold back or find an alternative way of explaining something?
We try to do a little bit of all three, Jenna. If it's nothing but acronyms, it becomes gobbledygook. People just kind of they'll wander off, and then it's a detractor to the story. If it's too simplistic, then it's like, okay, well, you're not telling me anything that's exciting or thrilling.
Mm.
Um, so can I give you a parallel for
Oh, yes.
you know, like, oh, okay, all right, for instance, what's a security algorithm? Uh, well, okay, let me give you an example. Rather than use it, explain it like a telephone book. I can look up anybody's phone number with their name, but I can't look up the individual with just the phone number. And that's the one-way hash algorithms. That's the way that works. So we use that explanation. And yeah, I've got some folks in uh, the baby boomer. I would categorize them, and if you get if you go very much farther than Teflon and Velcro, they think, oh, that's too technical for me.
Yeah, I sometimes put myself in that same boat, honestly. But yes, I think when it's explained well or you're given just enough information to make sense of it, even if you maybe don't have complete comprehension, it's still enough to put you in that story and help you follow what's happening.
Yeah, and it has to be there, but it doesn't have to be mind-numbingly detailed. So,
Mhm.
you know, um, it just takes time to be able to do that. Is he having trouble getting on the chair? Oh, the sofa. He's
Yes,
letting himself up on the sofa. Yeah. All right.
since this might be in the recording, he does have a mobility issue, so he's not really able to jump. But yeah, he
Oh,
does find a way to scramble up on his own sometimes.
okay. Well, he's looks like he's parked now and he's resting. So there it is.
Mhm. Well, do you ever think that there is sometimes too much focus placed on text or the tech, or that maybe this is something that authors might inadvertently do when they're writing a story?
Um, Full transparency. Yeah, we've been guilty of doing that. Putting too much tech in, and Rox is the one that says, can we take a step back, Charles? Because we don't want to boil the ocean. And problem
Great phrase.
was some of the stuff that we ran into was like, okay, it's got all. I like I like to categorize myself as I like knowing how the sausage is made,
Mm,
and so I want to see all the bells, whistles, all the things it'll do. That's why they let me play with the technical toys. Um, but it's about the story.
mm,
So if the story the story it's all about the story and the character interaction. The technology is really there to help prop up the areas like, okay, well, how is this done? Well, you know um, how do you find somebody's cell phone? Well, you bounce a signal off the tower, and then it goes down to a landline, and then you just track it backwards. Okay, that's a short version of you know um, geolocation for a cell phone. um, that works both ways. I can call from any place on the planet. Conversely, I can find you any place on the planet.
mm,
So, that's that's why is that important? It's important if you're trying to find the bad guys that are trying to extort funds or to steal technology or you know push their agenda ahead of everybody else's uh, life uh, expectations. So
yeah.
that's that's the counsel I want to say is that if you focus on the technology, you
Hmm.
miss the point.
Yes.
Give me
Thank
a
you for that
story.
example. Yeah,
Yeah,
I think that's going to be helpful for other writers or authors listening who are trying to figure out how do I focus on the story because that might seem like broad advice, but when you boil it down to here's what you have to know for the story versus here's just what's interesting to know or a more advanced approach to understanding this technology, yeah, I think that is very helpful for figuring out what to keep and maybe what to cut.
yeah. Well, and to be honest, I mean, we're recovering technical manual writers. That's what we used to do, and so it's easy for us to bake in too much stuff, and so we have some checkpoints with ourselves, beta readers, our first line editors, like yeah, if she comes in and says blink, 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 do you really need all of that? And I'm like, well, no, I just you know, it has to be justifiable in my mind, and I sometimes have trouble throttling that much stuff and keeping focused on the character development and the frustrations they have. Like I can't figure this out.
Yeah.
And then and how are these bad guys getting getting into the environment, and look what they've taken. This is all advanced technology. So they have to recreate that, and so that's where the threat comes into place, and that's the fun exercise um, for the characters. Like, and you get to see them grow and develop
Yes.
as they're pushing the envelope to understand.
So speaking of characters and character development, what is your approach for creating your protagonist? And does that differ from how you create your antagonist?
Um, Nobody's perfect. Nobody's perfectly evil, and nobody's perfectly good. Somebody once pointed out that the difference between the good guys and the bad guys,
Mhm.
the good guys have the same problems the bad guys do, but they internalize all of their problems and their issues. The bad guys inflict their anger on everybody externally. So, with that in mind, that's where you start. That's okay. If I'm a bad guy and I have no problems justifying
Mhm.
myself, but maybe there was a turning point in his life that doesn't get explained until about halfway through, and you go, "Oh, now I get it."
Mhm.
Probably one of the best examples I can give you, Jenna, is we had a review done on book number 10, and there's a cyber freebooter uh, name of Matthias, and thoroughly evil, very much all about himself. Can't wait to fleece somebody. Him and his running buddy. Um, but the reviewer said something that always stuck with me. He goes, "I didn't want to like him. I
Oh.
didn't want to feel sorry for him. I couldn't help myself. That to me suggests that we captured the right kind of bad guy.
Yes.
And it's the good guys, okay. If they're too squeaky clean, talk about boring.
Mm,
Don't they have any flaws? I mean, again, nobody's perfect. So, how do you tease out some of those shortcomings without without being too in your face? And that's where the character development polishing, so we like to call it, takes place throughout the book, each one of the books. And if it's a recurring character, then they've got an evolution that they're going to go through over multiple books in the series. So
right.
um, you don't want to give everything away on the first book because you got more details, and people don't work that way.
No.
They evolve. In real life, you're not the same person you were 10 years ago. You've
Right.
experienced more, you've understood more. You know, uh, Maybe you lost weight, maybe you gained weight, who knows? But it's not just the physical attributes, but the emotional, the
Mhm.
psychological um, growth, or maybe there's something that's crippling, and you see them spiral in. And we've taken some of the good guys sometimes um, to the depths of their emotional depression, and so those are um, that helps to explain why they are who they are. They've gone through a bad patch. They've come out of it. Sometimes they don't come out of it. They just wander off, and that's part of the story. And
Mhm.
then we bring them back later on, and they've gone through some sort of metamorphosis. You know, uh, those are some of the techniques that we like to leverage
Mhm.
when we're taking characters, and sometimes the characters tell us what they should be doing, and that's the fun part because it's like um, we get halfway into a third of the way of the story, like no, 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 I'm the character. I need to be doing this.
Right.
So sometimes you need to listen to what the character's telling you.
How do you think the story changes when you're able to elicit some sympathy or compassion for the antagonist instead of making them that 100% pure evil sort of cartoon character villain?
Um, there's always some flaw that you don't see up front. They may start off. We've got a really thoroughly evil one in book number 8, the Enigma Broker, and this guy is looking to be able to drive um, whole governments, planets, economies into a tailspin by tampering with the information that builds the commodities market. Commodity markets is regulated, or is pretty much free market. Uh, but so many people depend upon it, and he realizes that he can destroy whole governments by
Uh,
manipulating it. And it's just it looks like he's heartless all the way up through about two-thirds of the book, and then all of a sudden you start seeing these character flaws that are like, oh wow, this is why yeesh, okay, you go from despicable to pity.
yeah, that's something that I personally enjoy in stories because I also think it helps show that maybe there's not as much of a divide between your protagonist and your antagonist as it might look like on a surface level, or if you just broke it down into a quick character summary of each person, that it's been this series of choices or events that have led them to each of these points, that they weren't necessarily born to be the hero or the villain. Yeah, and it's this cumulative effect.
Yeah, the ones that uh, I really enjoy personally are the ones where, like, okay, um, we've got a couple of characters that they start off as like, uh, well, we had an old colleague of ours. Um, well, she wouldn't like to hear it saying an old colleague because she doesn't like that term. I had a colleague of mine that we've known for many years, and she started reading the books, and she said, "This one character, you cannot. Why do you let her live? I don't get it." Yeah, and by book that was like book 4. By book 6, she had been redeemed. She
Yeah.
had we teased out enough of the story and character about her. It's like, oh, uh, she was sold into the big house, and she was 12, and then by 17, she has so jaded that she's for sale uh, or hire as a cyber assassin. And so, uh, she steals. She's uh, she's looking for a payday to get out of her lifestyle until finally it occurs to her that there are people that really did care for her, and it does turn her around. And like Gail finally said, I can't believe how much she's grown. I mean, I like that character now. Thank you, Charles. And so those are the fun exercises where you take somebody that's like they can't possibly be redeemed, but yet there's that other side of them that was that injury that you finally let people see that okay, there is something there you can identify with.
So moving on to other parts of the narrative, how do you ensure that the stakes feel high enough to carry the story or to carry an entire series too?
We try to have each book written so it's a standalone.
Hmm.
Um, we we don't we don't like having somebody throw a cliffhanger on us, so I hate doing that to anybody else. Um, so the stakes have got to be contained within that particular book.
Hmm.
Um, they contribute to the overall series because that's uh, most people's lives are episodic. They've got things that hey, I didn't sign up for this particular nonsense, but here it is, on the front door, and I got to deal with it before I get back to my life. And we get back to your life and like, well, gee, I feel different now. So they contribute to the overall theme.
Hmm.
They have each one's got their own attributes to be able to drive a story forward, and how to be able to make them important. What's important? Okay, the lifestyles of people, countries, the whole planet. The stakes have to be high enough. I mean, if you don't defeat this, then all the computers get locked down, or more importantly, maybe all the computers are turned against you. Those are the kind of stakes that, okay, that it's not just somebody lost a backup tape. No,
Right.
yeah, that's not enough. Uh, but what if you're in a boardroom meeting, say all of the other VPs of a bank, and the main guy says, "Can anybody explain why we have no assets? Everything is gone. The accounting, everything. There's nothing here. We don't own anything. Nobody owes us. We don't owe anybody. And
Hmm.
because there's no accounting, everything's zero. It got wiped out. We don't exist financially. How do you retrieve something like that?" And then the light goes back on, and they said, everything's been put back. You mean they can take and then store things?
Yeah.
Oh my God.
Mhm.
Wow. And we didn't find it until it's late. Okay. Claim that it's somebody else or several somebody else's.
Mhm.
And that's the kind of approach to make it desperate.
That's an interesting way to create tension too, just showing what could happen to you or knowing that this could happen at whatever point they choose to do this to you. And that underlying fear of will it happen now? Will it be today? Do we have a way of getting away from this or finding an alternative to doing X, Y, or Z so they can't?
Yeah.
And
And of
then,
course, the other thing is like, that in Ed Guy world, it's always about, okay, here's something evil I can do.
yes.
That's the first half of it. How do I get away with it?
Mm-hmm.
Is what is the other part of it. So, there's the movie called The Getaway. When they rob this bank, and that's like the first 5 minutes. They rob a bank, and the rest of the movie is spent trying
Yes.
to escape.
Yes. Evading justice, right? Making sure you're
Yeah,
not caught.
well, they stole stuff, and the bad guys are after them. bad guys are after them, and so they're like, where do we go from here? So,
Mhm.
those are kind of storytelling techniques that you can tweak and apply to techno thrillers.
Well, and what are some of the ways that you employ tension when you're ending each chapter?
Sometimes with like well, we just got finished writing this one particular book. Um, it's a pussy mystery in the Magnolia Bluff Crime Chronicles series, and we really ratcheted back the technology.
Oh,
Except that but it's still there because it helps the cyber sleuth to be able to find where the bad guys are. And uh, one the major is told is saying that, who's the perpetrators for this? How did they get into get this far with this kind of activity? And uh, the protagonist writes a name on a piece of paper and ships it over across the desk. Says the guy looks at it, flinches, and he goes, I can tell by your posture, you know who this is, and you
oh.
don't say. I mean, you leave it right there.
Mm-hmm.
Those kind of, you know, what happens next? That's part of that is like, okay, I want to know what you're going to have to continue the journey through the story to be able to find um, who that was.
Well, for our final question, what fictional piece of tech, or maybe currently underdeveloped piece of tech, do you wish existed in the real world?
Uh, I just saw where the time reflection technology looked like it might be a reality. And they just had a sequence of proof that they did out of, I think it's University of New York, I believe. And the theory's been around for 50 years, and they think that they've been able to prove the ability for time reflection, basically time working backwards.
Oh, wow.
So I think that would be, I'd like to see where that discussion go. Part of my job for our writing team is to scan the horizon for weird, dumb stuff that people like, huh? Well, who cares about that? And then think about, well, how would you use it in your next story?
Very,
So there's that.
yeah, that would be a really fun one. Well, I don't know
Yeah,
if fun is the right word. It could be. It goes back to that statement you made earlier about using it ethically or not ethically. So, yeah, that could
yeah,
go either way quite quickly.
yeah. Well, we usually get a question or two about artificial intelligence and AI,
Oh,
and we I'll go ahead and make the sweeping statement that artificial intelligence is just like fire. Fire was discovered at the beginning of our civilization. Fire was good. Fire could, cook food, keep you warm,
right.
keep the wild animals away. Fire could also burn down your house, wipe out whole villages, devastate your hunting grounds, and kill off all of uh, the animals in a wildfire that you can't stop. Artificial intelligence is exactly the same way. It does great stuff. I use it. I know how to use it. I won't let it write for me, but I like to use it for maybe some graphics and some proofing. But it's also got the capacity to be devastating, just like wildfire. I mean, just like the fires in uh, Los Angeles beginning of this year.
Yeah.
So those are the that's the observations that I would say that will probably have some very interesting um, technologies and job descriptions. You got firefighters, who are set to be able to take care of fire after how many thousands of years? We still have fire that beneficial and also horrific in certain scenarios.
Yes.
We believe that artificial intelligence will have the same duality
Right.
for yeah, for our civilization.
I can't remember who said it, but it was someone talking about the sci-fi genre decades ago, and he was saying something about how when you create a piece of technology, you also create all the negative outcomes associated with it. So when the car was created, you also created the car accident. And that's
Mhm.
something that I always think of now when I'm reading or editing sci-fi, and what I was thinking about even just now with your well said explanation.
Yeah, and that's what that's what gives us the material to write about.
Yes, exactly. Well, thank you again.
Jenna, it's been a delight. Thank you, man.
Same. And thank you for listening. And be sure to check out the show notes for additional information and links. And then please join me next week when author Brad Anderson will be here to share how he writes about heroism, fear, and family in sci fi. Thanks again.